children. Good morning, ma'am. Today we are going to do Robinson Crusoe, so please open your books. Do you know what the word shipwreck means? Yes, Suman?
A ship getting destroyed at sea.
Good, that's very good. Why don't we check up Oxford Educate to see what the dictionary meaning is? When we go to the dictionary, what does it say? A ship that has been lost or destroyed at sea. Can you tell me about another character who was also shipwrecked? Jonathan?
Gulliver.
Gulliver was also shipwrecked, and it's very interesting to know. Let's go into the reference section and we'll find out who Gulliver was. And here we have it. Gulliver's Travels, written by Jonathan Swift. Both were sailors. They were both survivors of a shipwreck and both wanted to travel the world. But there is a difference. The difference is, while we have Robinson, who had a very realistic adventure, a realistic setting, Gulliver's, on the other hand, had to deal with floating islands and Lilliputians.
Here, the teacher uses online dictionary to teach the words. Firstly, before using the online dictionary, she asked students to guess the meaning by themselves, and then she came to the online dictionary instead of telling them directly. This can increase students' participation and engagement. Actually, nowadays, more teachers prefer to use pronunciation function of dictionary in classrooms. Because they are not native speakers, they think it's better to let students practice pronunciation with dictionary when they first time learn a new vocabulary. However, compared with the video, I think it's better to ask students to look up a word with dictionary on their own instead of learning altogether. Because using dictionary, students can finish learning just on their own without anyone's help, which they may feel more interested to learn new language, and it can enhance their self-confidence. However, as can be seen in the video, the new explanation of the vocabulary was translated in target language. In reality, students may prefer to find explanation in their first language, because L1 vocabulary allows learners to process ideas and reach higher levels of understanding. Furthermore, most of the time, we can find different explanations in the dictionary for one word. So sometimes students may feel very difficult to identify the right meaning. It's better for us teachers to spend more time to explain different kinds of online dictionaries and training students to how to use dictionary appropriately.
And giants, so his was more along the fantastic elements. Let's listen to an audio rendering of the first paragraph. Close your books. I need you to pay attention to the audio.
Unit 3, Robinson Crusoe. We started off on our voyage in good weather, although it was very hot. After about 12 days, however, a violent tornado came from the north, The waves rose high, the skies were black, and the wind howled through the sails. 2 members of the crew were washed overboard, and after a day or 2 the ship began to leak. We changed our course and drove out of the hurricane, but the next day a second terrible storm attacked us. We could see the shore of some unknown land, but the sea was very rough. The rain dashed down, and we were afraid to approach close to the land. Our only hope was to clamber into a small boat and try to row to the shore. 4 of us managed to get the boat into the sea, and we jumped into it. We rowed with all our might, but the waves were like mountains. We struggled on, but at last a gigantic wave, greater than all the others, hurled our little boat into the air, and it sank beneath us.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, ma'am.
At this point, experiential stage is to help students activate mental activities in multi-dimensional ways, which can contribute to the representation of the text. Teacher use audio function from this app to read the first paragraph of text to students, which giving opportunities for students to see the text while listening. This is different from the traditional teaching method that teachers talk from the beginning to the end with a chalk and a mouth. Such teaching is very single, which makes students lose interest. But just as what Tolstoy once said, the successful teaching is not to force, but rather to stimulate students' desire. The sound here is quite vivid and lively, which can definitely help students to be immersed in the story, and meanwhile learning the standard pronunciation and intonation of it. Multimedia is one kind of medium which can show a variety of sounds, images, animation, and other effects, which can firmly grasping the students' interest. Moreover, it can improve students' innovative ability. During the listening, students will visualize the scenery of story in their mind, especially under the vivid reading of the audio, which can stimulate the students' strong desire to study English actively. One possible problem is that the speed of voice cannot be controlled, so some students may be lose point during the listening.
Can you guess what the plot of the story will be? Do you think Robinson Crusoe is going to survive the shipwreck? In order to summarize this paragraph, we can now use a sticky note and put it up right out here. This is called a topic paragraph. A topic paragraph is the paragraph that prepares and orients the reader about what the story is going to be about. It describes the voyage of Robinson Crusoe and his companions, the one that they have set out for. They have survived the first tornado, but the second one has sunk their ship. Now let's listen to the pronunciation of the difficult words in this passage. We hear the pronunciation and repeat after it. You have the list out here. First word.
Voyage.
That is? Voyage. Good. Next one.
Violent.
Next.
Tornado.
Very good.
Overboard. Course. Hurricane. Gigantic.
Very good. Was that easy? Yes, ma'am. Having done that, let's look at this sentence out here on page 35. The waves rose high, the skies were black, and the wind howled through the sails.
At this part, the teacher did two things. Firstly, she used sticky notes to present the topic of the paraphrase. Secondly, she played the audio of difficult words. For those two processes, I have four things to comment on. Firstly, I can see the shadow of some restricted call. Unlike the flashcards, the feedback is simple and straightforward. On Oxford, students can compare their pronunciation with the original. Here, the feedback is from the audio. Secondly, according to the summer model, I can see the teacher trying to reach the first stage, S, which is substitution. The sticky notes is directly replaced for all traditional notes. It is a simple bare-bone direct replacement. And the teacher also tried to evaluate and analyze a paraphrase. It practiced students' high-order thinking skill and engage students into enrich learning experiences. Thirdly, we can see the teacher trying to combine the teaching activities and technology together. However, I consider it may show the teacher have a little bit technological determinism. As you can see in the video, she didn't use the Oxford very well. The activities stopped unreasonably, normally after when she showed the function of the Oxford. Lastly, the teacher tried to follow the stages of text-driven approach. For example, the teacher encouraged learners to think deep or guess what will happen next with the text. It is kind of Rene's activities. And at the nearly end of this part, the teacher focused a specific linguistic and discourse feature of the text in order to discover about its use.
Look at the word high out here. What does high describe? Janardhan?
The word high describes rose.
Rose. So the waves rose. Rose out here becomes a verb. How high did the waves rise? An adverb. That's right. So high is an adverb. Do you remember the comparative and superlative forms of adverbs?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Turn to page 40 out there, and we have a short exercise on adverbs. Let's go through that one. Quickly becomes
More quickly. Most quickly.
good. Fortunately,
More fortunately. Most fortunately.
in the second one we have hard, which becomes
Harder.
right, Disha?
Hardest.
Harder and hardest. Next one is high, Vedant.
Higher.
High becomes higher and
Highest.
highest. Let's do an interactive exercise. Abhinav, can you please help us out with this one? We have hard, which becomes
Harder.
harder. Harder. Harder turns to
Hardest.
right. Next one. Badly
Worst.
to
Worst.
worst. Fast.
Faster. Fastest.
Carefully.
More carefully. Most carefully.
That was fun and it was easy, right? We now
In this lesson, teacher used IWB as a teaching tool. IWB is really convenient for teacher to use. We can see teacher highlight some keywords for students, and students can see those keywords clearly. Besides, IWB has other functions, such as playing audio for students in order to improve their listening skills.
Also, it has such advantages. I think the disadvantages are more obviously. Firstly, such coursebook software follows traditional methodology. I mean, it uses PBP models rather than TBLT models. Under PBP models, students need to do a lot of exercise, which is boring for them. Secondly, such software is insufficiently personalized. It ignores the students' differences and lack of flexibility, which cannot achieve a better teaching effectiveness. What's more, it's teacher-centered. Teacher is dominant in the whole class, and it ignores the status and the needs of students. Last but not least, there is little interactivity in fact. The only interaction is between student to teacher and teacher to students. We cannot see any group work or pair work in the whole class. That's a big problem. I think more students should be involved in the class. Maybe to some extent, we should focus more on how to make teachers more professional rather than only rely on IWB.
Know the comparative form and the superlative forms of the adverbs given. With that, we come to the end of today's lesson. We stop here, we continue tomorrow morning, and of course we are going to use the Oxford Educate to make our lessons interesting and